She cries with her back turned not to hide her tears, but to weaponize your gaze. You thought she was breaking, but she was bending, and she knows the difference. In the stillness after the sob, when her lips are trembling and her fingers fold in helplessness, a ledger is being balanced. 1 act of softness, 2 units of guilt, 3 inches of control. She touches your arm like a confession. You offer comfort like a man. But in that exchange, something ancient and silent has been signed. Power shifts in the moment you hesitate. Your instinct says protect. Hers says possess. She never raises her voice. She never lifts a blade. But you have knelt already. And the worst part, you called it love. If this whisper already knows, you let it echo. Like the video. Leave your shadow in the comments. Subscribe and stay near the silence. What appears as weakness is a stage. Every collapse is rehearsed. You have seen her break before, haven't you? But look closer. There was a rhythm to it. Her shoulders fell just slowly enough for you to feel the weight. Her breath halted in a way that summoned your silence, not hers. That tear didn't fall, it landed, right where your pity was hiding. And when her voice cracked, it cracked open your resolve, not hers. You thought you were witnessing emotion, but you were inside a performance. Every falter, every pause, every shiver was curated, choreographed, and sharpened against the mirror of your need to be a good man. That's the curtain. Her fragility draws it closed, and behind it, the empire of her influence takes shape. There are women who never need to scream. They fold their hands and look away. They whisper, "It's fine," and you rush to fix what they've already forgiven. Or so you think. What you don't see is how the quiet grants her leverage. Because silence speaks, and in her silence, she sculpts your guilt. She doesn't command. She doesn't demand. She suffers. And in that suffering, you offer your crown without ever realizing it's been taken. She's not playing victim. That would be too obvious. No, she becomes consequence. The moment she withdraws, you feel smaller. The way her eyes won't meet yours. The sudden distance in her body. The faint tremor in her voice. It doesn't just evoke concern. It creates obligation. You begin to doubt yourself. You begin to offer. You begin to compensate. She doesn't say, "Give me power." She simply falls and waits for you to carry the throne to her feet. What you call compassion, she calls calculus. Not because she is evil, because she understands you better than you understand yourself. You, the man who needs to be needed, who believes in protection, who believes that strength must serve softness. And so she paints her power in the shades of pain, in the hues of helplessness. You bend toward her wound, not realizing that the wound is where she leads you from. Consider the way she apologizes. It's never a simple act. It's a spectacle of surrender. "I'm sorry I'm not enough," she says. And in that sentence, you become the criminal. You rush to reassure her. You hand her your throat to prove your devotion. She apologizes like a queen descending from her pedestal, and you beg her to rise again, unaware that it is you who has knelt. When you first met her, she seemed shy, gentle, vulnerable, but vulnerability was never her prison. It was her castle. Every glance downward, every nervous laugh, every stumble over a word, it disarmed you. It made you lower your sword, and once your weapon was laid at her feet, she smiled not as prey, but as strategist. Because in Machiavelli's world, control does not always appear armored. Often, it enters barefoot, with wet lashes and a trembling voice. She understands appearance better than you, the way a fall can be seductive, the way tragedy makes tyrants seem tender, The way a woman who hurts beautifully becomes unforgettable. You confuse her tears for truth. But she doesn't cry to express what she feels, she cries to control what you feel. Because tears are not expressions, they are transactions. She has learned this from centuries of survival, from mothers who were silenced, from grandmothers who had no sword but silence. She learned that the appearance of surrender is the most dangerous tactic in the room, because when you believe she is beneath you, your guard drops, and so does your crown. She never raises her voice, she lowers it, and in that quiet, you lean in, you come closer, you offer. That is where she begins, the script of softness, the spell of subtle manipulation. It begins with, "I'm scared," and ends with you surrendering your decisions. Not because she asked, but because she allowed you to offer. You were not manipulated, you were made necessary, and that is her masterpiece. Now remember the night she cried in the kitchen. She didn't shout. She sat, folded into herself like origami, her breath shallow, her eyes swollen. You walked in and felt guilt like a punch in the throat. She said nothing. You apologized. She shook her head. You knelt. She touched your face and forgave you for a crime you don't remember committing. But in that moment, your soul was no longer yours. It belonged to the one who broke so quietly. This is not seduction. It is strategy wrapped in sorrow. Because a man will resist anger. He will fight defiance. But grief, helplessness, sad eyes in candlelight, he will give everything to be the one who heals it. And she knows that. Machiavelli once said men must either be caressed or destroyed, but she discovered a third path. She destroys you by being caressed. The pity you feel is not weakness, it's a leash, and the more noble you are, the tighter it binds. You think you are choosing to help her, but what you are really doing is protecting your own image in her eyes. You don't want her to think you're cruel, you don't want her to feel abandoned, and so you offer gifts, sacrifices, apologies not to lift her up, but to clean your reflection. That's the trap. You act for her, but really, you act for yourself. And that's exactly what she counted on. Her tears are mirrors. Her silence is a script. Her breakdowns are bargaining chips. She does not conquer like a general, she conquers like a saint. And once you believe her pain is proof of truth, she owns not only your sword, but your sense of right and wrong. You will call her pure. You will call her fragile. You will call her unfair. But you will never call her what she is, a ruler without armor, a manipulator without accusation, a Machiavellian without malice, because that would mean admitting you were fooled by softness, and no man wants to believe his downfall came from a woman who never even raised her voice. That is the genius of the curtain. The collapse you saw was not her end, it was her entrance, and when she wept, it wasn't grief, it was your obedience being born. Power, when cloaked in innocence, commands without ever needing to conquer. She never touched the crown. Not once. It was placed on her head by your own trembling hands. Because she never claimed power, she radiated the illusion of not wanting it. And in that illusion, your defenses drowned. You mistook her distance for purity. You mistook her softness for absence of agenda. But that is how she governs through the sacred myth of the uncorrupted. A woman untouched by ambition is the most dangerous sovereign, because you offer her power without the blood, without the fight, without even realizing you've been ruled. She doesn't assert, she receives. And every gesture of refusal, no, I couldn't possibly, that's too much. You don't have to do this for me as a maneuver. She lets you feel chivalrous, generous, self-directed. But beneath her humility, a throne is rising. It grows not from dominance, but from your desire to elevate her, You build her altar out of your own ego, and you mistake it for love. She plays the virgin archetype not with flesh, but with intention, immaculate in spirit, untouched by cynicism, seemingly unaware of her effect, but she knows. She always knows. The way she tilts her head when uncertain, the way she hesitates before accepting your offer, the way she avoids the gaze that she has already calculated. She is not feigning ignorance. She is wielding it like a crown made of fog. The less you see, the more you imagine. The less she asks, the more you give, because mystery commands, and innocence, when adorned with silence, becomes prophecy. You interpret her restraint as nobility, her modesty as moral, but the more she refrains, the more power gathers in the space she does not fill. You speak more to compensate. You justify, explain, promise. She sits still, and stillness becomes scripture. In that quiet, you paint her perfect. You elevate her above the world. She never lifts a finger. You carry her through the fire. But you were never saving her. You were building her kingdom. Every time she said, "I'm not sure I deserve this," she became untouchable. Not because she truly believed it, but because you did. Her reluctance made her holy, and you, the knight. In that dynamic, your strength became her currency. You gave up decision-making, not as submission, but as worship. She ruled from beneath, and you called it reverence. This is the throne you built for her, composed not of laws, but of your ideals projected onto her stillness. Because a woman who appears incorruptible is the most perfect vessel for male delusion. You don't want to believe she has motives. You want to believe she transcends them. You want to believe she's above manipulation, because that makes your devotion safe. And so you blind yourself not because she deceives you, but because you prefer her myth. You gave her the kingdom to keep your illusion intact, and she accepted slowly, hesitantly, with enough visible discomfort to keep your conscience soothed. She didn't want power. No, she just wanted to be near you. She just wanted peace. She just wanted everyone to get along. And yet, the family listened to her. Your friends began asking her opinion. Your mother began calling her for guidance. And when conflict arose, people turned not to the loudest voice, but to the clearest innocence. She had no title, but her absence from the battlefield made her sacred. That is the virgin's grip, no crown, no weapon, no claim, yet everything moves around her. She never boasts. She never commands. But when you choose something she disapproves of, you know, not through criticism, but through silence, through soft eyes that dim, through the subtle pull of her energy away from you, you sense disapproval not as punishment, but as exile from grace, and so you return, you align, you choose her preferences, because it hurts more to lose her light than to lose your own freedom. That is power, the kind Machiavelli would envy because it costs her nothing. There is no war, there is no speech. She lets others become her voice. She lets you correct yourself in the mirror of her goodness. And when you fail, she doesn't accuse, she withholds absolution. And the ache of that absence makes you bend. She becomes the judge not by sentence, but by serenity. You bring her offerings in the form of compliance. You call it harmony. She calls it strategy, because by never appearing to want control, she inherits all of it. The house is hers. The tone is hers. The social order adapts to her preferences. No one gave her authority. They simply began to act in ways that kept her light undisturbed. Even your rebellion is shaped by her presence. When you try to assert yourself, "I need space. I have to make this decision for me. I feel like I've lost myself." She does not fight. She agrees. She supports. She lets you go. But in the days that follow, A ghost walks beside you. Her absence is too kind, too understanding, too gentle, and it hollows you. You return, not because she chased, but because she didn't. You miss the version of yourself you were in her gaze, and you'll do anything to see him again. That is the throne. She rules by being the mirror of your better self. You serve her not to appease, but to be the man she reflects. And when she withdraws that mirror, your soul loses shape. She says little, she asks for nothing, and yet your world bends to accommodate her. She doesn't need permission to lead because you lead for her. You change course before she protests. You modify tone before she flinches. Her gentleness becomes your leash, her kindness the architect of your restraint. And should she ever fall, you will rise in defense. Should she ever be doubted, you will silence her critics. Should she ever falter, your identity will shake, because her perfection became your compass. This is not romance. This is rule. This is not inspiration. It is influence. And it was built on nothing but the illusion of absence. A throne sculpted from your ideals, held together by her refusal to claim it. The Virgin never stains her hands, but every law was written to please her. And when the palace crumbles, you will still call her pure, because that is her final power. She makes you blame yourself for the kingdom she ruled. Praise and softness are laced with strategy. Affection is the perfect betrayal. She tells you she's proud of you. She places her hand on your chest and whispers that no one else understands you like she does. She listens when you speak, even tilting her head slightly, like she's absorbing your soul through her skin. And in that moment, the fortress you built as a boy, the one made of caution, sarcasm, silence crumbles like dry earth under a spring rain. You feel safe, seen, cherished. But what you do not see is the thread being pulled behind the softness, the rope tightening around your instincts, because affection is not always love. Sometimes it is the velvet sheath for the knife. Machiavelli said it was better to be feared than loved, but she learned the deeper truth: if you can be loved and feared at once, then you've already won the war. And fear wrapped in adoration is the most lethal weapon. You don't fear what she'll do to you, you fear what you'll lose in her disappointment. That's the prison. Her praise isn't free. It teaches you what pleases her, it conditions, it sculpts, and soon you're no longer making choices, you're performing, hoping for her next smile. It starts small. She tells you she admires your integrity, that you're not like the other men, that you're gentle, different, awake. You glow under the compliment, and so you start choosing what fits that image. You stop saying certain things. You suppress doubts. You filter your opinions through the lens of her approval, and like a dog trained by a gentle hand, you don't even notice the collar. You call it connection, but it is conditioning, and the treats are tailored perfectly to your ego. Then, one day, you say something she doesn't like. Perhaps it's honest, perhaps it's raw, perhaps it's simply yours. Her smile remains, but it's thinner now. Her praise slows. She becomes quiet, not cold, not angry, just slightly withdrawn. And the silence screams. You rush to correct yourself. You soften your voice. You rephrase. And when the smile returns, the relief in your chest feels like oxygen. You were not punished. You were trained. She never punishes directly. That would expose the game. Instead, she adjusts her affection like a thermostat. Too hot, and she cools. Too cold, and she warms. And like a man walking through fog, You begin to shape your steps by a temperature you can't see but deeply feel. You become smaller, smoother, easier to love, less of a threat, more of a reflection. She says she loves you just the way you are, but only when you are the way she wants. You laugh with her, you trust her, and sometimes you share things you've never told another soul. She leans in, she strokes your face. She says it makes her feel closer to you, and it does. For a time, until one night, weeks or months later, she repeats something back to you gently, offhandedly, with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. Remember when you told me about how insecure you felt at your last job? She says it in passing, but your stomach tightens, because in that moment, you realize what you gave her in love is now lodged in her hands like a blade. She hasn't used it, she hasn't threatened you, but she could. And the worst part is you'll still adore her for it, because the fear feels like intimacy. She has you, not through cruelty, through memory. You thought she was your sanctuary, but she has become your surveillance. Every weakness you exposed, every flaw you confessed, every trembling truth you handed her in the dark, she holds them like coins, not to spend cruelly, but to remind you of who gave you the warmth. And now, you dare not risk that warmth disappearing. This is how sabotage works when clothed in sweetness. It doesn't destroy you, it disorients you. You begin to mistrust your own instincts. You think, was that really manipulation? Or am I being ungrateful? You replay conversations, trying to decode meaning behind her tone. And while you unravel, she bakes bread, sends texts with hearts, and posts photos of the two of you smiling on a hilltop. You tell yourself everything is fine, but your spine knows better, because real betrayal doesn't announce itself, it reassures you. She praises your progress. I'm so proud of how much you've grown, but beneath those words is a reminder you were not enough before. She uses affection to mark your transformation not as freedom, but as proof of her impact. Your improvement is her shadow, and now, your identity is rooted in her approval. Leave, and you lose who she convinced you you've become. Stay, and you stay manageable. That's the genius of it. You think you're the man you've always wanted to be: strong, soft, capable, attuned. But that man was sculpted by her calibration. You are not whole, you are optimized. And if you ever resist, if you ever try to reclaim your rawness, your edge, your darkness, she will not attack. She will sigh, she will say, I just miss the man who used to open up to me. She will say, I feel like you're pushing me away. And in those words, she turns your rebellion into cruelty. She makes your independence look like betrayal. You will apologize, you will return. You always return, because her betrayal was never an event. It was a process, a slow shaping of your decisions, until your thoughts begin to sound like her voice, until her values are your compass, until you confuse her comfort with your conscience. And should you ever expose her, should you name the manipulation, should you describe the reward system, the silence, the soft conditioning, she will look at you with wide eyes and say, is that really how you see me? And in that moment, your heart will break, because you realize even the truth feels like you're hurting her. That's the final sabotage. She made honesty feel like violence, and silence feel like virtue. So now you carry your truths like weapons you dare not unsheath. You smile through doubt. You nod through confusion. You kiss her forehead and tell her she's everything because she is not in love, in leverage. And if, one day, you gather the courage to leave, to speak your truth, to reclaim your mind, she will not chase you. She will let you go with one final smile, one final I only ever wanted what was best for you, and you will leave, haunted by that smile, wondering if you were the villain, wondering if she really meant it. Because betrayal laced in sweetness is never remembered cleanly. It fogs the mind, it perfumes the blade, and you bleed long after the knife is gone. There's a letter you never wrote, still folded inside her drawer. You don't remember what it says, but you remember the way your hand trembled when you sealed it. The ink was still wet. The room was too quiet. And outside, the moonlight did not touch the floor. Somewhere in that silence, you said goodbye to yourself and thanked her for the goodbye.